Before colonialism proper started, it was preceded by the age of exploration. So the British government and some other concerned stakeholders in that country, particularly merchants, even missionaries, sent in explorers to explore the entire length and breadth of Africa. And Britain was not alone in this. Most other European powers that
Portugal, I know Portugal.
Portugal, Spain, even France. They wanted to, Germany too, they wanted to know what the interior of sub-Saharan Africa looked like and what was life like in there. So they sent in anthropologists, sociologists, adventurers generally. They came in. So for example, it was Mungo Park who came in and explored for them the nature and form of the river Niger. They had a faint idea that there was a river that runs through the interior of West Africa, but they had no clear idea of
how to navigate it.
Its source and its terminus. So it was on his way to now determine its terminus, where it terminates, that he died in the Buxa Rapids, somewhere in Niger State here. So the exploration was continued by the Lander brothers, who now determined the fact that River Niger terminates into the Atlantic Ocean through the Niger Delta. So that now made it possible for inland navigation of goods and services from Europe into the interior and outward export of raw materials too, through the same route. Now they did all of these explorations and took judicial notes. They also explored the anthropology and the sociology of the people. Enough for the British to now realize that. For example, they looked at the people that you now know as Yorubas of the Southwest, the legacy states of the Oyo Empire. They looked at their culture, their
practices,
everything, and decided that, look, from this part of the country to this part, these are Yorubas, essentially.
Thank you for doing this with me again. Thank you.
Mr. Wale, thank you, my dear brother.
I really appreciate your effort. Thank you very much. Anytime I call Dr. Majid, you pop up. But quickly, what do you feel about this information that we are putting out to people there? To Nigerians, to everybody. Yes. Not only Nigerians, because this is going around the world. What do you feel about this information that we are putting out?
Okay. It was Father George Usani, the ED of Luke Solar Leadership Foundation, who has this very fun saying of his. I think he actually took it from Albert Einstein too. He said, look, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. Meaning, if a particular level of consciousness has created a problem, to solve that problem, you have to evolve a higher level of consciousness. Now, Nigeria is today contending with a myriad of challenges, principally morphed into insecurity and economic problems, right? And so, how did we get here in 63 years plus of independence as a nation?
It's a long time, 63 years.
Yes. Wow. By October this year, will be 64 years as an independent nation. Okay. So we're already an elderly nation state, but that is still struggling to crawl. And how did we arrive at this point, having come so far as an independent nation? Now, the consciousness that created this problem was that which characterized and defined Nigeria as a country of irreconcilable diversities, hence necessitating even the structuring of the state along ethnographic fault lines, which did not, or which prevented the right levels of social cohesion that was enough to bring about national unity that is required to develop a country economically and security-wise. And so to reverse this trend and bring about a national rebirth of a new Nigeria, we have to now evolve from this consciousness of irreconcilable differences, of the fact that Nigeria is made up of too many nations in one that have nothing in common, to one that begins to actually isolate and identify the commonalities amongst us, and to debunk this age-long myth about the fact that Nigerians are so irreconcilably different to be a nation, a united, socially cohesive, stable, and prosperous nation. And I am saying, Material evidence suggests otherwise. And if we as a people do not evolve into that new consciousness far and above the one that created the problem, we can't solve this problem of absence of social cohesion and national unity in order to bring about a prosperous, a developed, and secure Nigeria. The reason is simple. There's no country in the world, none, not one, has been able to develop and meet up with the primary responsibility of government, which is welfare and security, and it's a global phenomenon. The primary responsibility of every government in the world, not just Nigeria, is the provision of welfare and security for citizens. Any country that has been able to achieve an appreciable level of national development and national security had to first attain an equally appreciable level of social cohesion and national unity. And that is why the unity of a nation is so emphasized that in some countries, unity is affixed to the name of their country or nation state. So you have a United States of America is emphasized. That is, unity cannot even be emphasized. That's why it was affixed to the name of that territory. You have the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. United was such that it had to be affixed to emphasize to everybody that look, we must be united, we need to be united.
In another word, we did together. We are not going anywhere.
It's like a family and a household. A country can be a household. Well, people, father, mother, children, uncles, aunties. But the ingredients of cohesion is not there, so that household cannot necessarily be a family. Whereas you can actually have a family of people that are not actually related by blood. But there is sufficient social cohesion. There is sufficient, ingredients of ties that are bind enough to become a family. And that is why it is possible to adopt a child and show that child love, proper care, and he becomes or she becomes blood. Your child blood forever. It is also possible to have your own biological child.
And they will be gagala.
Yes, you will die, they won't attend your funeral. So it tells you that you can create a state, you can make a territory, a united nation that is socially cohesive, that prospers. And I am saying, in the case of Nigeria, Nigeria's problem is not so much about our so-called diversity. I think it is man-made, it is political in nature. And I'm saying there is enough incentive for Nigeria to become united like you have in the United States, where people of various races have become Americans, true and true. You have the same situation now in the UK. You have the same situation now in most of Europe. And we've seen the prosperity that has come with it. And I'm saying until Nigeria attains that level of consciousness and begin to put in effort towards statecraft, we may not fundamentally be able to resolve the problems that bedevils Nigeria today.
So that's why it is important we are doing what we are doing.
And in other jurisdictions, it's been difficult to create a United States, for example, because these are people from different races. You have blacks from a continent that is far away from Europe. You have Hispanics. You have Asians. You have people from Middle East.
And you have the Aborigines themselves.
They are there. And somehow, through skillful art of statecraft, we have been able to create out of the United States of America a country where it is possible to be Black African and American, where it is possible to be Hispanic and American, where it is possible to be Asian and American, where it is possible to be Arab and American.
Let me bust your bubble. It's even possible to be Gbagi and American.
And you can attain the highest level of aspiration without being limited on the basis of your ethnicity, religion, race, or creed. And we are saying, while it took them a lot of effort, a lot of, diversity management skills and deployment of skills to achieve this, ours will be easier to attain because fundamentally, we're not a multiracial country. We are simply a multi-ethnic. And our ethnicities, if you pay close attention, you will discover, for example, that we have so much more in common than we really realize or are willing to accept.
Okay, so, Dr. Majid, on that ground, let me say, thank you for being there. Yes. And thank you for your messages. The first episode What do you think about it? What do you think about the first episode? We got lots of comments, we got contributions, we got jabs, we got everything, and we will be looking at them one after the other. I and Dr. Majid, and this we had lots of questions, we had lots of comments, we had lots of suggestions. And please, if you do still have those suggestions and comments, please just go to our Facebook page. It's Middle Ground the Podcast. Middle Ground the Podcast. That is Middle Ground THE Podcast. Written together, Middle Ground the Podcast. That's our handle on Facebook and on Instagram. That's our handle on Facebook and on Instagram. Please subscribe to our videos on our YouTube page. It's Royal Mind TV, Royal Mind Space TV. That's our channel address on YouTube. Please subscribe. Please. That's the only support we are asking for. And Dr. Majid, it's looking like as time goes on, we would make some of these clips that we are doing, we'll make it exclusive. Only members only will be able to view it, because as much as we got some bad reviews, some people said some things were wrong, that we said some things wrong, some things right. We will be handling some of them here on this episode. And this is the second episode. Let me repeat that again. Now, on this second episode, we will be looking at, now let me do a refresher of the first episode. What we did in the first episode was we looked at before the colonial masters came in, what was Nigeria like? And we were able, on that episode, it's a 4-part episode. It's right there. I'm going to drop a link in the description in case you didn't watch it. Watch episode 1. I and Dr. Majid ended up proving that we had connections through marriages, through war, through trade, and some other things that connected us even before the colonial masters came in. Now, this is the second episode. Now, this second episode, I call it, Where is Your God? Nigeria. Now, I'll tell you how I came up with that topic for this next episode. And it's as a result of a conversation I had with somebody older than me, and somebody that really did not agree with what we said in episode 1. And what that person said was, yes, there was war, there was trade, there was marriage, there was affiliation, pre-colonial, but we did not have common beliefs. So, in trying to prove that we did have common beliefs or we did not, I picked some of the questions that were asked in episode 1. And remember, this is episode 2. So, Dr. Majid, are you ready?
Yeah.
Good. This one is from somebody. I don't know if he or she, Stephen Adejo, on Instagram, sent a direct message on Instagram. Don't forget, our Instagram handle is at Middle Ground the Podcast. The podcast is THE Podcast. Middle Ground THE Podcast, written together. So you can send us a direct message. You can comment under our videos. At Dejo Official, that's Stephen Adejo, said, "Hello, Dr. Majid. As much as I agree with you on the fact that most of the inhabitants of Nigeria was connected one way or the other before colonialists, we all had practices that set us apart from each other, which means, according to..." Now, he didn't say where he came from. Adejo, I don't want to make any speculation. I don't know. But I know that you'll find Adejo in Kogi State.
Find Adejo in Enugu State.
You'll find Adejo in Enugu State.
Find Adejo in Delta State.
You'll find Adejo in Delta State.
That's because Adejo sounds to me like the language we call Igala. And like I said in the episode 1, you can find the Igala speaking communities across North Central, parts of Northeast, south-south,
Hmm.
and parts of southwest. That is part of the connection we keep talking about. So the name Adejo itself gives us an inkling.
So if I didn't know Dr. Majid now, just assume it's probably Kogi.
Exactly. And again, I don't know what does Adejo mean in Yoruba, for example.
So Adejo, you see, let me try my best. You know, Ajo, contribution. Ade, it's crown. So in Yoruba, it can easily be translated as contributions of crown or crown contribution.
Okay.
Or maybe it's a family where it's from a royal family where, you know, people come, do big things. You become king, you do something big. So it's like the crown has now become a conglomerate, you know. So yeah, you can translate Adejo in Yoruba like that.
Adejo means a judge in my native Yoruba language. So what you call a magistrate today, what you call a judge today, what you call a justice today, is simply known as Adejo in my language.
Wow.
And I know that some neighboring Yoruba speaking communities too to us also use the word Adejo to also describe judicial officers. I'm saying this because at every point we need to point out these commonalities. Now back to what he asked about marriage.
About the flogging. First things first, I
Yes.
say it. I won't collect kids for anything.
No, it doesn't matter. What that indicates is that across the country, across the length and breadth of this country today, we had institutional ways of contracting marriages. That is the commonality. You don't have that in Europe. In Europe, a man sees a woman, they want to get married, they don't need anybody's consent.
Yeah, they don't
need family intervention. They don't simply go to register and get out of that place.
And that's why they can pieces tomorrow. They can pieces next week.
But in Africa, not just Nigeria, in the entire Black African continent, marriages are ceremonial events that involves family, involves community. It involves an elaborate ceremony that celebrates and heralds the union of a man and a woman in various forms. It can be through heaps of yams, with palm oil, with fish. It can be farming in a community for the community or the parents or the group of the bride by the groom for a number of years.
I have to farm for the family.
It can come in various. It's not different now. Various. The common denominator here is that marriages are contracted in such a communal manner that everybody is involved, and it manifests in different ways. And one common denominator is this: a man, the groom, is supposed to put some level of capacity and tenacity enough to show maturity to be able to actually.
I'm enough to keep a woman, you know.
So among the nomadic Fulani, for example, some section of the nomadic Fulani where the issue of flogging comes in is to test the tenacity of the man. It's to say, look, I am a man enough, I can endure this, I can endure pain, because patience, endurance, and other attributes to manage a home. So in their own cultural reality, their own, as nomadic herdsmen, this is what they can use to accentuate that critical ingredient of maturity before marriage. Now, it can reflect in other ways, in other parts of Nigeria, where the environment also shape their culture. But the underlying culture that is common, which gives all of us a common cultural background, is that we contract marriage in this a very elaborate manner. It's a communal affair. Two people cannot get up and get married and it's recognized culturally. No. There has to be all of these ingredients and elements. That is the commonality. When we say people are common and similar, are one people, it does not mean that they sleep and wake up and eat exactly the same manner. The same way that you and your own biological father do not do the same things in exactly the same manner. But you do certain things and it illustrates a commonality in background. Even in religion, for example, Christians have different denominations because the understanding of the Bible is to each man according to his understanding. So you have Protestants, you have all sorts of denominations having varying degrees of interpretation of the same common scripture. It is the same thing in Islam. You have as many sects in Islam as you have denominations in Christianity. who do not even agree on some common issues.
Now-
But they are still Muslims.
Mm.
And whether you're a Christian or you're a Muslim, whether you're a Jew, so long as you worship the one God, you will still belong to the broad Abrahamic monotheist religion. So you cannot now tell me because a Christian takes Holy Communion or believes that Christ Jesus is the Son of God, and the Muslim believes that Christ Jesus, for example, is a Messiah and just a prophet of God and not a son of God. That now makes us Muslims and Christians so different that we have to kill each other and not believe in each other, having the same spiritual background. So no two human beings can ever do the same thing exactly the same. But you need to go back to the broad cultural context. So in this instance, marriages in Africa are never contracted in isolation of the extended family or the community by the two intending couples. No, it has to be a communal thing. But in Europe, for example, it will be a cultural shock for them to say, so just to do marriage.
Person.
I mean, it's not just flogging. So you bring all of these gift items to come and pay dowry and you do all of this.
Also pay dowry.
Really?
But you know the funny thing is some of them, and when I say some of them, some of the Europeans are already experiencing it. Some of them that are getting married to Africans that come here, and when they come, they bring goats,
and that
they
is
bring
the nature of the commonality of the entire humankind. A white man and a black man are perfectly of the same spectrum. That's why it's possible to infuse blood from a white man to a black man. Who needs blood?
Wait first. Sorry. So this is strange.
Yes.
Real? For real?
If for example, you need blood today,
and it's the same blood group.
It doesn't
matter whether he's white.
The requirement for
Chinese.
blood transfusion has now been race or ethnicity. This blood group.
Oh, really?
Whenever it occurs, and people donate blood and just dump without even knowing who's going to be the beneficiary. So that it is possible for blood to be transfused from one particular race to another race. And also perfectly possible that a white man from UK can come to Nigeria and marry a black woman from Calabari, and they procreate and create a child or offsprings that are perfectly normal and human. Tells you that the entire humankind are essentially one and the same.
Mm.
And so today, the white man who never really saw this as part of their culture has now come in contact with those of us that have this as a culture. And what are they doing? They are willingly and beautifully adopting it. So, because it's not harmful. It's not harmful. It's not a harmful practice. So, for example, the art of bringing goats and bringing foodstuffs and doing all of the things we do here is not exclusive to the black man, culturally, spiritually, and genetically. In fact, I'll tell you something today.
Okay.
In South Africa, they have this culture they call Sangoma. That is spiritualists. South Africans are very spiritual in nature.
Yeah.
So the Sangomas, for example, are usually people that have some gifts of divination and all. Do you know that because of the multiracial nature of South Africa today, you now have white Sangomas?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That is white people that have acculturized into the various African cultures of the Zulus, the Amahuza, the Amasetus, all of them. Enough to now say, I'm not just practicing the Zulu culture, for example. I cannot qualify to be a Sangoma. Yeah. And those who originally own this culture have opened up and now laid down a criteria where even a white man can come in and be taken through the rituals of becoming a Sangoma.
You are actually going very far to South Africa. Whenever there is the Oshun festival here, you always see white people.
The priestess of Oshun, of the Oshun, used to be a white woman.
It used to be a white woman,
from Germany, or is it?
I think it's Australia or somewhere. Austria. Yeah.
And the goddess didn't say, hey,
I don't know you.
She's not Yoruba, so I won't accept you.
Oh, they fear goddess.
Because the goddess is wise enough to know that Agbaye.
Yekoni.
They are wise enough.
Is one.
That's why, for example, the Oni of Ife will tell you that I'm not just the ruler of Yoruba land, but the entire world. Meaning, even African or what you like, Yoruba cosmology understands the universality of man.
Of course, because you will find that Yoruba divination, Ifa, you find they worship Ifa in Cuba, they worship Ifa in Brazil, they worship Ifa.
The entire human existence manifests in various forms, but it has a fundamental background that is common to all. That is what even our Orishas here organize and now allow the white woman to be the chief priestess of an important African deity like the
Like
Oshun.
Oshun. Okay. All right. So Adejo Stephen, if you can hear me, please send us a message. Let's know which part of Nigeria are you from, because we've said here that you can find Adejo in Kogi State,
Yes.
you can find Adejo in Imo State,
Across the entire,
Enugu.
but you can find Adejo across the country. And
Across the
and
country.
If he's from the Kogi part of Igala speaking Nigeria, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I want to believe you know. Okay, so your question have been answered. I believe so. All right, so let's go to the next question, Dr. Majid. This one is a very interesting one. This is from Sebastian Ekpa. Now, handle, this message was sent on Instagram, also direct message. It says it's from @Ekpasin. And so he says this: are these stories still relevant in today's Nigeria? How does it improve the life of ordinary Nigeria?
In fact, the reason why we're having this conversation is precisely the answer to
This kind of question is from Sebastian
People
Ekpa.
do not know that. You see corruption that is wreaking havoc in Nigeria. You see insecurity. You see what sort of problems we are facing. It's because Nigerians do not accept and recognize. I have not been actually groomed and educated enough to realize that. Let me take corruption as an example. People don't know the sociology of corruption in Nigeria. Let us even define corruption in very simple terms. What is corruption? Corruption is simply the abuse of office, of privilege, of authority, of power for pecuniary gains, sectional gains. Southwest or Western region was essentially Yoruba land. Essentially. Fine. Eastern region was essentially Igbo land. Northern region was essentially Hausa land. So you know what is created? It was not possible for you to be Igbo and be Northern Nigerian. Essentially.
So, okay, so
it was also possible for you to be Hausa.
Okay, so Dr. Majid,
and
let
Eastern region.
me ask a question.
Yes.
The gains, the pre-colonial gains that we had, you know, we were together, we do business together, we marry among ourselves. Yes, we fight wars, we took over territories, took over places and everything. When independence came, we lost all that. Is that what you're saying?
Not just independence, when colonialism set in, the few of us who went to school, who became educated, we are miseducated about our reality even before colonialism. And that is very sad. There was a fundamental miseducation. Whereas our ancestors that we are not educated, so to say, understood that the principles of assimilation and integration are consistent with our African tradition. And that was why it was possible, for example, for a group of people to leave some parts of Nigeria today that is in southern Nigeria and move up north and became northern Nigerians and became fused into the communities that they settled amongst. They brought their culture, they met a culture, it was fused together and became a hybridization of a culture. We've seen such back and forth movements. And also, for example, I made the example I made last episode that it is because of this African citizenship system that allows for seamless integration and assimilation of Nigerians or African peoples into whatever culture they choose to reside amongst or within, which is similar to what you have in Europe today and America, where it is now possible to be black and American, black and British. It was also possible in those days to leave a community for whatever reason, go to another community and be accepted 100%. You fuse into the culture. Over time, your language fused with their own, and you become one. Our ancestors were decivilized. To understand that because of the commonality of humankind as a whole, not to talk of people of same race and proximate geography. Those who went to school, who were supposed to take this even further and institutionalize this, sadly, came back with a mentality of divide and rule. So they began to point out
the differences instead of the similarities.
And consolidating on those similarities going into the modern era. And so the first thing they did was they united, so to say, their ethnic groups and similar ethnic groups that they perceived to be similar into what became the first set of regions. So you had largely Igbo-speaking areas of current day eastern, southeastern part of south into the East-Eastern region. The next time we saw Ghanaian dance when he came out of Malaysia depression, after a long while, he became a personalist from Chile. And now converted those people into a very cultural